Coast, I would say everybody should get out. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster.
An increasing threat of Hurricane Florence on a crash course towards the Carolinas.
The evacuation order started yesterday at noon, but you got to be gone by 8 o'clock tonight.
Farzad Fazeli has been arrested for allegedly attacking a Republican candidate running for California's 15th congressional district. Tried to stab him with a switchblade while yelling disparaging remarks about the GOP.
Brand new text once again between FBI lovebird Strzok and Page. Months before the election, it appears Strzok and Page will contribute to an op-ed about Russian election interference.
And now we're seeing in these text messages that they were shifting the narrative. We need to re-question all of these players.
This is a Fox News alert. The clock is ticking as millions of people are told to pack up and head to higher ground as Hurricane Florence heads for the Carolinas.
Wow, look at that aerial footage. Mandatory evacuation orders now in place as that massive storm. It's a monster as it's surging. All of the water surge is expected to slam the East Coast, and President Trump sounding off on the potential catastrophic damage to come.
They haven't seen anything like what's coming at us in 25, 30 years, maybe ever. It's tremendously big.
We have live Fox team coverage this morning. Todd Pyro in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where some are ignoring the dire warnings to simply get out. But we begin with our own Griff Jenkins in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, where folks there are facing a quadruple threat this morning. Good morning, Griff.
That's right. Good morning. We have all the components, guys, here for a catastrophic, life-threatening weather event that could last for days. Let me show you why. We have the hurricane winds, 140 miles an hour or thereabouts, expected to come across here, and certainly the outer northern bands. You can hear a little bit of a rumbling behind me, I think. That's not quite the storm yet, but you're going to get the storm surge here as well. They're saying 9 to 13 feet. That is unbelievable, as well as expected flooding because of the low-lying inlands. We have 4 rivers here, the Pamlico, Neuse, Newport, and Tar rivers, that was absolutely flooded, devastatingly so, in 2 years ago with Hurricane Matthew. And then you've got the rainfall. If this does indeed stall and put 25 plus inches, it's going to be very dangerous. You know, 2 years ago, there are areas that still have not recovered in Kinston, where the Neuse River is. There's places that were under 25 feet of water. And for the folks that try to stay behind and ride it out here, they need to know one thing, and that is they are likely to be stranded. It is likely to be life-threatening, and that no one is coming to get them. That's why they have the evacuations here. Mandatory. People have got to be out by 8 o'clock tonight in Atlantic Beach and the surrounding Carteret County. The mayor pro tem here in Atlantic Beach, Richard Porter, had this to say.
We're asking people to leave. And those that choose to stay, they have to understand that they may not have emergency services available to them to come and rescue them. That's the whole purpose of this mandatory evacuation. Get out of town. It's dangerous. It's a huge storm.
The message is serious. It's time to get out, and time to get out now. If you're in Carteret County and the surrounding areas, even though you may see the track going a little south, the northern part of this, the dirty side of this storm, is going to make it quite a life-threatening situation, guys.
That's right, Griff. Thank you very much, because the biggest storm surge is just to the north of where the eye goes ashore.
Thank you, Griff. That's in North Carolina. Now let's go to South Carolina, where highway crews are working around the clock to clear people, get them out off the coastline.
Officials already warning the shelters are not strong enough to withstand this hurricane's wrath.
But many people are refusing to leave, and Todd Pyro picks up our team coverage live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Steve, Ainsley, and Ed, good morning to all of you. This place is somewhat of a ghost town. There's a little bit of activity here along 17 right now. But again, you go for huge stretches, minutes, where you don't see a single car. You can hear your voice echoing on a road that is typically filled with people, filled with tourists, filled with individuals hoping to enjoy a golf vacation. That's not happening this week. You can see, like many businesses, this business boarded up, ready for whatever Florence will bring. At least that's what the business owners are hoping. But that said, despite the warnings about the storm of a lifetime, people we spoke with said they're not going anywhere.
I am going to stay with my dad's house and see what happens. This is home. This is where I feel comfortable, and right now I don't see any reason to leave.
We're staying here. We stayed during Matthew and had a ball right here. I think it's going to wipe out up north further than down here. But we'll stay right here until it washes the building away. We're not scared to lick.
Those that heeded the advice to leave hit the roads yesterday, leading to major backups along the South Carolina coast. At around noon, the state reversed the direction of many of the roads, allowing all traffic to move out of the area. An area from Myrtle Beach past Charleston is in the crosshairs. And take a look at this. The sheer size of Florence is the reason why. Besides the hurricane force winds, a life-threatening storm surge of up to 9 feet along the South Carolina coast is a huge concern. And Ed, you alluded to this before. People in Charleston County that want to go to shelters are also facing another major issue. The shelters there are rated for a Category 3. That said, we're expecting something along the lines of a 4, could be a 5. Those individuals that are hoping to go to a shelter in Charleston County could be moved to shelters in neighboring counties. Back to you.
All right, Todd Pyro, Griff Jenkins, thank you for those reports. There was somebody on Fox earlier, local official in South Carolina, saying if you don't heed the warning to get out, you literally have to write your name on your limbs, because they're going to need to identify you. So you've got to listen.
Very, very scary. I don't understand why people would stay. That's just not most of our personalities. But I do, my sister lives in Charleston. She evacuated to Columbia and is actually coming to New York for the weekend. And she said a lot of her friends have decided to stay. She only knows about 2 or 3 that are actually leaving. Now, Charleston is a lot farther south than Myrtle Beach is. So Myrtle Beach is going to get hit, it looks like, a lot harder than Charleston will.
But we still don't know exactly. It's uncertainty. It's uncertain where it's going to go.
That's right.
And I have, I know people who do try to ride the storm out, and then they kind of get caught. We thought we were just going to get a little bit. Next thing you know, it's Category 3. It's a Category 4. And here's the thing. When you get in trouble, and when he was talking about how the shelters are not rated for the really strong storm, and this is a really strong storm, when you get in big trouble, you call the police to come help you, right? They're not going to come help you because in a lot of places, once it's above tropical storm force winds, the police can't go out over the bridges and things like that because they would be putting their own lives in peril. So you can call the cops and say, hey, I need help. And they'll say, as soon as the storm is over, we're going to come out and get you.
That's right. Yep.
All right, we've got the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, coming up live right here, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time.
And what he said yesterday was pretty scary. He said, even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different.
Well, you see the images of Harvey and what it did to the folks in Texas and how people were stranded in their houses with no electricity, water up to the 2nd, 3rd floor, people on their roofs, not able to get out. When you see those images, even though it probably is not going to happen in your area, there is always a chance. And why risk it?
Right. And because of the potential for these super storms, storm winds to come ashore, they're suggesting that some parts of the disaster area, and if it hits hard, it will be a disaster, could be without electricity for weeks.
Well,
and there are 16 nuclear power plants in the zone. They've already started to shutter down the Brunswick plant. And when they slow that down, where to see electricity?
Well, I had friends that were in Florida last year, and I guess it was Harvey. What hit Puerto Rico? Was that Harvey?
Irma or
that large storm? They were without electricity for a week. They had booked plane tickets to get out about 2 days before the storm hit them, and they weren't able to get out. They canceled those flights, and they weren't able to leave. Right. So they were stuck in their house, no electricity for more than a week.
So if your local authorities tell you to get out of the way of that storm, as you look at the eye right there, do it. Please do it. All right. Meanwhile, Janice is going to have the forecast in a little bit, but let's talk politics. We know that Maxine Waters was at an event, giving a speech, receiving an award on Saturday. And the President of the United States went after her, after some of the things she said, with a tweet.
Yeah, about 8 hours ago, he tweeted this late last night. He said, crazy Maxine Waters, after we impeach Trump, we'll go after Mike Pence. We'll get him, quoting her. Where are the Democrats coming from, the president says. The best economy in the history of our country would totally collapse if they ever took control.
This is exactly what might motivate the president's allies ahead of the midterms. We're just 8 weeks away now, and you could see some of his supporters saying, look, this is what's going to happen if Democrats take over. Damage to the economy, impeachment, all the rest. And so you've seen Nancy Pelosi and other Democratic leaders publicly and privately say, Maxine, calm down. Let's try to win first, and then you can say what you want after the election. But she can't help herself. Here's what she said over the weekend.
They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment. I had a conversation here today when someone asked, but what about Pence? If you were able to impeach, Pence will be worse. And I said, look, one at a time. You're not going down, and we'll be ready for Pence. We'll get him too.
Well, the thing about Maxine Waters is she's been pushing for Donald Trump's impeachment since before he was actually sworn in.
That's right.
The new wrinkle is involving Mike Pence.
That's unbelievable to me. She's going to go after the president, and then they're saying he's actually more dangerous than the president. Her progressive constituents think that in that small crowd. And then she on stage says now she's going to get President Trump first, then she's going to get Mike Pence.
It's not doubling that. What is it? Triple?
Quadruple. What's after quadruple? Because she said impeach.
Pretty soon we're going to have to look at the line of succession to the White House. Is the Secretary of State, the Senate President pro tem? She wants to impeach the whole
House. Agriculture Secretary.
She also re-upped her calls to tell you to harass the cabinet members if you see them at the gasoline station or at the department store.
But this is serious stuff, because we're going to talk later in the show about people who are facing violence out on the campaign trail because of the kind of thing that's being stirred up here. Sure. And again, the political angle here is that there are Republicans nervous about, well, is there a red wave or is it going to be a blue wave? If you've got more loose talk like this, it may just motivate Republican voters ahead of those midterms.
We've got Bill McGurn from the Wall Street Journal. He's coming up next talking about how former President Obama was referring to the return to civility in politics. How civil was it not so long ago? How long
did that last?
We'll get reaction from Eric Trump later in the show, too. And his wife, Laura, is from North Carolina, and her parents are right there on the beach. So we'll talk to him about how they're doing.
All right. 6:12 now here in New York City. And Jillian has the news. Good morning.
That's right. Good morning to you. And a bit of a disturbing story here. And this is the message. I am coming with a gun. Police investigating that chilling message posted on Twitter. An anonymous person threatening a mass shooting at a Make America Great Again event at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. The account has been removed. And in California, a congressional candidate uses a campaign sign to fight off a man armed with a knife.
He would have stabbed me. I mean, he had it out saying, I'm going to kill you, MF, or I'm going to kill you. And he was, you could see his thumb trying to get the knife out.
Rudy Peters at a town festival when police say Farzad Fazeli attacked. He is under arrest. A Navy vet backed by the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is now on the path to history. Eddie Edwards winning a Republican primary for a U.S. House seat in New Hampshire. He could become the state's first black congressman in November. And the political revolution is canceled again. Bernie Sanders' son, Levi, gets trounced in a Democratic primary for a congressional seat in New Hampshire. Levi getting just 2% of the vote after his father decided not to endorse him. One of the most senior Catholic Church officials in the U.S. could soon resign. Cardinal Donald Wuerl announcing he will be heading to the Vatican to discuss his future with Pope Francis. The embattled Archbishop of Washington has been heavily criticized since the release of a bombshell Pennsylvania grand jury report last month detailing his mishandling of sexual abuse cases when he was bishop of the Pittsburgh Diocese. Let's look at your headlines. We'll see what comes of that.
Indeed. All right.
Thanks, Jillian. 13 minutes after the top of the hour, his mom was killed in the 9/11 attacks, and he used the 17th anniversary to send a message to the Democrats, and he's going to join us live coming up.
Stop. Stop. Please, stop using the bones and ashes of our loved ones as props in your political theater.
Restoring civility to politics. But in a new op-ed, our next guest argues Democrats need to stop playing the civility card. And that lack of civility started way before President Trump took office. Bill McGurn is a member of the Wall Street Journal editorial board and Fox News contributor. Joins us live here in the big circle on the floor. So we heard from the former president of the United States, Barack Obama, over the weekend, where he was talking about the good old days when people were really civil in politics.
Right, and they didn't talk about people bitterly clinging to guns and religion and so forth.
Oh,
right?
wait a minute. He did that, didn't he? And what about Hillary Clinton with the deplorables?
Deplorables and irredeemable, not just deplorable, but irredeemable. Look, I'm reminded of this Mark Twain quote: the louder he talked of his honor, the faster we counted our spoons. The more people talk about civility, the more you might want to look at their own behavior on this.
You know, when you examine the events of the last week, Bill, in addition to the former president coming out and saying, you know, I didn't really want to talk about politics, but I kind of got dragged into this. You had the Kavanaugh hearings, which were not very civil. And then you had the McCain funeral as well.
Right. Look, that's what I look at. At the McCain funeral, I mean, John McCain was a hero. President Trump was just flat out wrong about that. I've been to the Hanoi Hilton. It's just incredible what he went through for his country. But that funeral was a disservice to him because it became a week-long insult to President Trump. And all these people congratulating themselves on their exquisite sense of decency 2 days after John McCain's buried are back at the Kavanaugh hearings, you know, shattering norms and so forth. Look, I think it's fine to talk about Donald Trump being incivil and shattering norms, but apply the standard across the board.
Hold up a mirror.
Right. And apply it to everyone. You know, I mean, really, the violation of rooms, the accusations, it's you know, he didn't start to ask, you know, Judge Bork's family if they think that incivility started with the election of Donald Trump.
And what about Sarah Huckabee Sanders? She's just going out for a bite at supper time.
And Mitch McConnell, his wife, trying to get into a car and accosted by a group of young men. It's incredible. I guess it doesn't count as incivility if it's directed at Donald Trump or someone that works with him. I mean, Congresswoman Maxine Waters is saying, you know, accost these people everywhere you see them, in a restaurant, in a department store. Is that really the civility project?
And then you hear the news about that guy out in California running for Congress, get slashed in the face by somebody who's yelling about Donald Trump.
And also, if you wear a Make America Great hat somewhere in the wrong place, you know, you're liable to get a punch in the nose.
Sounds like there's a double standard.
Right. I think there is. I mean, look, Ann Holthouse, a famous blogger, she thinks all calls for civility are basically an attempt in politics to shut down people with whom you don't agree.
All right. Read all about it in the pages of the Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com.
Thank you.
Bill McGurn, thank you. All right. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, his mother was killed 17 years ago on 9/11. And yesterday, he used the anniversary to send a message to politicians who are politicizing the tragedy. He joins Ainsley live next.
Stop. Please, stop using the bones and ashes of our loved ones as props in your political theater.
Morning again, some quick headlines. Chicago taking one step closer to universal basic income. The outgoing mayor, Rahm Emanuel, forming a task force to consider giving 1,000 families $500 every month. The program would provide monthly payments without any conditions at all. It's seen as a way to combat poverty. And outgoing Liberal Governor Jerry Brown is handing out a goodbye gift as well, in the form of a six-figure salary. Juan Pedro Gaffney admitting to the San Francisco Chronicle his friendship with Brown landed him a job at California's Workers' Comp Appeals Board. The former choir teacher will now be making nearly $148,000 a year. Ainsley?
Thank you so much, Ed. The son of a woman who died on 9/11, speaking out at yesterday's memorial with a very strong message to those who politicize the tragedy. Listen.
This year, a representative of the House referred to our loss as just another incident. And last week, a senator attacked a Supreme Court nominee and called him a racist for alleged comments after 9/11. Stop. Please. Stop using the bones and ashes of our loved ones as props in your political theater. Their lives, sacrifices, and death are worth so much more.
That man, Mr. Nicholas Harris Jr., joins us now with more of his message. Good morning to you, Nicholas. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Ainsley. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what provoked you to say those words yesterday?
Well, I was thinking about what I might say from my mom yesterday, and in the background were all kind of noises. There were the Kavanaugh hearings, there was the incident at the U.S. Open, a university in Wisconsin, a group of students tried to get the 9/11 memorial display removed there. So with the background, I said, you know, I've had enough. People are hurting, and I just wanted to use my mom's death in love as an opportunity to just ask people to calm down a bit.
If you read the response on social media, a lot of people agreed with you. What was your reaction when you read some of those responses, and what were some of the comments that people were making?
Well, immediately after my remarks yesterday, my social media started buzzing up, and by the end of the day, I've gotten hundreds of nice letters of support. And if I could say a common thread, the first thread, people acknowledged the fact that it was courage to say the remarks as they did. And the second aspect of it, and this pleased me the most, was that my mom must be very proud of me today. And I think that basically summed up the aftermath of the remarks yesterday.
Tell us about your mother.
My mom, Frances, was a loving mother. She had 3 children, and it's so funny. She probably was the oldest woman at the Trade Towers died. She was 76 at the time. And she didn't want to retire. She just loved going to work. She worked at the firm of Keefe, Bruyette & Woods, and her job was a receptionist. And she used to love Monday mornings because all the young traders used to come and share their weekend with her, ask for advice, whether it be romance or whatever. She was there for everybody.
That's great. What floor was she on?
She was on, I believe, the high 70s, so she was above the remark. And what's strange is she was also working 10 years previously when the first bombing occurred. And then she was 66, but she had a very hard time going down the steps. And her greatest fear was that she didn't want to go through that again because she required medical attention to exit building that period earlier. So if she didn't have to walk down those steps, and as we know was said, you know, stay at your desks, everything's all right. Well, my mom did.
Nicholas, you were supposed to be there that day, right? Didn't you work in the World Trade Center?
Yes, I was working in the World Trade Center at a different company. But the night before, I was called to, at that time, our Baltimore office to give a presentation in the morning. It was supposed to start at 9, and we had the TVs on sort of to kill some time when the news broke. So no, I wasn't there, but if I could share with you the tremendous amount of survivor's guilt that resulted after that, I not only lost my mom, I lost my business and over 200 lifelong professional colleagues and friends and people who worked for me during that period.
It's something most of us can't relate to or imagine, but I do know that God kept you alive for a reason, and He has a big plan for your life. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think you're right. It's a solemn day, a day to remember, not a day to be political. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Ainsley. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you. Here comes Florence, the hurricane that's bearing down on the Carolina coast now, and the track just changed overnight. Janice Dean with the latest on that path coming up next. And his investigation led to the impeachment of former President Clinton, and now he's sharing something explosive about Hillary. Ken Starr is live next. But first, happy birthday to our friend Kelsey Ballerini. She turns 25 years old today. If you gotta have it, ain't afraid to love, ain't afraid to break. If you got a Friday night free and a shotgun see, you will have to say I ain't got nowhere to be. So baby, I'll take whatever it is you got to give. Yeah, I'm calling dibs.
Today's birthday is... This storm is a monster. It's big and it's vicious. It is an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane.
There you got the governor of North Carolina. We're back with a Fox News alert. Hurricane Florence inching closer to the East Coast at 17 miles an hour. Incredible video showing Hurricane Hunter is flying right inside the eye of the storm yesterday. Look at that.
Wow. The Category 4 storm heading toward the Carolinas, where millions are now being urged to get out. Forecasters are predicting up to 13-foot storm surges.
Some are simply not heeding that warning and choosing somehow to ride out the storm. And Janice Dean, you've covered so many of these. Not a smart idea at this.
No, absolutely listen to local officials. And the hurricane hunters, by the way, are out there right now getting statistics on this storm. We think that it's going to be a strengthening storm in the 8 a.m. advisory. So we're still a Category 4. This storm has been a Category 4 for many days now. But the forecast models are uncertain. So we're pretty sure we know what happens today and tomorrow. And then a stall. Where does the stall happen? Does it happen before it makes landfall? Does it happen after it makes landfall? And then does it move southward? We are not sure. All we know is we got to watch the forecast models, and you have to listen to your local officials. South Carolina, North Carolina, even Georgia needs to watch this. So this is the Euro. This actually doesn't even make landfall. And then it moves back and then pushes into Georgia. So that's one of our reliable forecast models. So that gives you the uncertainty that we are dealing with. But we still have hurricane warnings. And in fact, we're still going to feel hurricane force conditions, major hurricane force conditions along the coast. If it stays off the coast, that is going to be a prolonged event of hurricane force winds, storm surge, and heavy rainfall. Where does that storm stall out? We still don't know. Storm surge, as you mentioned, 6 to 12 feet. We could see higher totals depending on where that eye comes ashore. The northeast side of the storm is where we're going to get the highest storm surge, and the rainfall, again, we believe will be the legacy of this system depending on where it makes landfall. If it stalls, we are going to be talking about this storm Florence for days into the weekend and next week. Stay tuned. Next advisory comes out at 8 a.m. We are on top of it. We'll keep you posted.
All right,
Okay.
Janice, thank you
Still
very much.
Category 4 right now,
Yes,
right?
still a dangerous, potentially deadly storm.
And a lot of variables we still don't know.
Absolutely.
All right, keep it right here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Janice Dean. Well, it has been 2 decades since the Starr report was released, leading to the impeachment of President Clinton.
Now Ken Starr is speaking out with his perspective on the investigation and the Clintons in a new memoir full of explosive new information, including that he considered perjury charges against then First Lady Hillary Clinton.
We haven't heard about that. Let's talk to the man himself, Ken Starr, former independent counsel and author of the brand new book, Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation. Ken, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So you considered charges of perjury against Hillary Clinton. Why not?
I'll always remember that day because we all sat in a room. We had a draft indictment. We had a very elaborate prosecution memo. In the trade, we call it a pros memo, which laid out all the facts, the charges. We simply did not have sufficient evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, when you interviewed Mrs. Clinton, when she was interviewed, didn't you get some answers then?
We got primarily, not that I recall, I don't remember, and we got it much more frequently than one would reasonably expect.
So do you regret not moving forward? Do you think now?
No. We did the right thing, Ed. We really did. We made a judgment. We were round the table, very experienced prosecutors saying, do we have the evidence to prove it? And that's a great protection of the country. You know, charges should not be lightly brought. I mean, if you cannot prove the charge, you shouldn't bring it.
You were like the Robert Mueller of the day. When I was reading your book, something that shocked me was Monica's reaction when she realized, Monica Lewinsky, when she realized she was set up by Linda Tripp. They were supposed to go to lunch together, right? And
Yeah.
what happened?
Well, first of all, as I describe in the book, Monica was encouraging Linda Tripp to file a perjurious affidavit, an affidavit filled with lies, just as she had done. And so we record what's happening real time. It's clear that she is, in fact, involved in a criminal effort to encourage others to lie. So then she is invited to a room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, 2 adjoining rooms, and we gave her the opportunity to get an immunity deal right on the spot. She was pretty angry about it. She was especially angry at Linda Tripp. expressed that anger in very
You said
colorful
she was
terms.
screaming and kind of losing it and going crazy.
She had a rant, but don't underestimate Monica. She's extremely smart, and she's very, very clever, and she kept a group of prosecutors and FBI agents just sort of standing by much of the day. Her mother arrives from New York. It was really a very dramatic day, and I try to give a sense of that drama in the book.
What about Brett Kavanaugh? Because he may be confirmed soon to the high court. And then you saw what happened at those hearings. It got pretty contentious. You had all these protesters, pretty uncivil. But also there's been this charge in recent days that somehow when he worked for you as independent counsel, he was a hatchet man. He was leaking negative information in the media. You say
partisan attacks, untrue, person of total integrity. Did he deal with the press on authorization? Yes. Did he leak grand jury information? We were totally exonerated of any charge that we had somehow stepped across the line. Prosecutors talk to people, and in fact, one of the things that people I don't think appreciate is the press brings very helpful information to prosecutors.
And you have great respect for Judge Kavanaugh, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, Ainsley. He is just A+. He's a person of great character. Coach K is just terrific.
And you have great regard for Robert Mueller as well. However, some of the partisan Democrats on his team you worry about.
I do. We tried, as I describe in the book, when the assault came that you're just a partisan Republican, I said, what do we do about this? So I recruited a very well-known lawyer, great lawyer, former prosecutor, but a registered Democrat who had supported Bill Clinton to be the deputy in our Washington office.
For balance.
Exactly, for balance, because of the appearance in response to the White House charge that this had become partisan. And then, I guess most famously, I recruited the then legendary, iconic Sam Dash of Watergate fame, who headed the Democratic effort to impeach Richard Nixon.
Do you see balance on the Mueller team?
I don't.
Is that
No.
bad?
Yes, it is bad. Given the nature of the investigation of the president, you want to take that appearance into account. Now, that having been said, I do have great respect for Bob Mueller.
How is that going to end up? What's going to happen?
I don't know. Your guess is probably better than mine. But I tell you, I was encouraged by this. The two indictments of the Russian organizations and individuals, right? The 11 individuals, the organization. And I've read the indictments very carefully. Not one suggestion of collusion with the Trump campaign.
And George Papadopoulos got 14 days after all the hype.
I think we're going to hear more about George Papadopoulos. I'm following that with great interest, and so we'll see. He's kind of suggested that there may have been collusion, but it was not with the government of the United States,
Right.
but with the Brits.
Right. And Judge, do you have confidence in the Inspector General at the Department of Justice that he is going to root out all these bad actors?
Total. I do. Michael Horowitz is a person of great integrity.
He's looking at Strzok. He's looking at Page. He's looking at all these names in the news.
Stay tuned. But there are checks and balances in place. It's one of the things that, as I describe in the book, we didn't have with the independent counsel statute. We're actually in a better place.
Judge Starr, good luck with the book.
Thanks, Ed.
Appreciate
Thank you so much.
Ainsley.
Congratulations.
Brand new. It's called Contempt. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. A Republican congressional candidate speaking out after fighting off a man trying to stab him.
He would have stabbed me. I mean, he had it out saying, I'm going to kill you, MF, or I'm going to kill you.
Steve Scalise is a victim of political hate. The House Majority Whip reacts in the next hour.
What a story. And as millions are being told to get out of Hurricane Florence's path, heroic first responders are going in. We're live with them next.
Good morning to you. Back with some quick headlines now. Peter Strzok is striking back. The fired FBI agent's lawyer insisting the Bureau was trying to stop leaks and not coordinate them. It comes a day after a new text message between Strzok and former FBI lawyer Lisa Page was revealed, saying, quote, I had literally just gone to find this phone to tell you I want to talk to you about media leak strategy with DOJ before you go. And Elizabeth Smart calls the release of her kidnapper incomprehensible. Wanda Barzee will walk out of prison next week, 6 years earlier than expected. The Utah Board of Pardons and Parole failed to give her credit for time served in federal prison. Barzee and her husband, Brian David Mitchell, were convicted of kidnapping Smart from her Utah home in 2002 and holding the teen hostage for 9 months. Mitchell is serving a life sentence. Let's look at your headlines. Send it down to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Jillian. Turning now to a Fox News alert. Millions leaving the Carolinas as Hurricane Florence barrels towards the coast as we speak.
But some brave volunteers are driving right into the storm's path.
Lauren Blanchard is posted right now in Wilmington, North Carolina, as those heroes answer the call for help. And Lauren, as the people get out, they go in.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, Ed, Steve, Ainsley. The National Weather Service says right now 5.4 million people are under not only hurricane warnings, but also hurricane watches. Take a look at this. This is a board here in Wilmington. Someone wrote this message on a boarded up business. Pray for Wilmington. It had information on shelters and a scripture. Emergency management has warned people finish those storm preps by tonight because that is when the weather is supposed to get worse. And here's a story in Wrightsville Beach using boards from all of the past storms they've been through. They're now bracing for this currently 500-mile wide Category 4 hurricane.
We're escaping what could be a disaster for us, and we're protecting our family.
I'm really scared about this hurricane, and that's why we're leaving.
And while many are leaving, there are those who are heading in. The National Guard is activating in states all along the East Coast, and Florida, which was just a year ago dealing with Hurricane Irma, sending first responders to help with evacuations and the flooding aftermath. And those first responders are also helping to evacuate places like hospitals and assisted living homes because, of course, those families or those elderly, those patients need to get out of this area where they are at risk and get to some more of these safer inland areas. A very big day ahead of these folks as Florence gets closer to the mainland. Ed, Steve, Ainsley.
All right, Lauren, you're right about that. Thank you very much. Live report from North Carolina. Meanwhile, coming up, President George W. Bush following in Barack Obama's footsteps today, what he's up to that's grabbing some headlines.
And Kamala Harris tried slandering Brett Kavanaugh on social media, but she left out two crucial words.
Plus, Tomi Lahren is here to call her out. That's coming up next.
We brought the Infiniti QX50 and its revolutionary.
Filling out the form would make them complicit in the provision of the abortion-inducing drugs that they were, as a religious matter, objected to.
California Democrat Kamala Harris tweeting out that clip of Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, implying he called birth control an abortion-inducing drug.
The problem, it left out the crucial first two words, the attribution, PolitiFact, even calling her out and rating her tweet false.
Joining us right now to react is Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren from the West Coast. Good morning to you, Tomi.
Oh, you have to love our California Democrats, right?
Well, you're in California. What do you make of the fact that Kamala Harris put out this very selectively edited piece to make Brett Kavanaugh look awful?
I think it just strengthens the case for Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation, quite honestly, because if all the Democrats have is lying and deception and selectively editing clips like this, it just goes to show that he is a great nominee. He should be confirmed. This is all they have in the toolbox. If this is all they can do, then I think what they're really telling us is they actually like Brett Kavanaugh and they're ready for his confirmation.
Well, over the weekend, Maxine Waters, she took to the stage. She got an award. She accepted it and she gave a speech, and she was doubling, tripling, quadrupling, even more than that she wants this president, our president, impeached. And then she also made comments about our vice president. Listen to this.
They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, impeachment, impeachment.
Then someone says, if we impeach the president, then what about the vice president? They said he's even worse than the president. And she said, just wait, we'll do one at a time. What was your reaction?
Well, of course, we've got Mad Maxine, and every time Mad Maxine opens up her mouth, it reminds us why we should vote for Republicans in the coming midterm elections. But furthermore, even the Democrats are calling on Maxine Waters to stop talking about impeachment because they know that every time that she talks about it, not only does it weaken their party, but it weakens her as a candidate, as a future candidate. It weakens the Democratic Party. At this point, I don't understand how they don't see her as a joke. I know I certainly do. That's all she has in her toolbox is impeachment and Trump during derangement syndrome.
And it seems like when we travel to campuses around the country, there's this indoctrination going on, anti-Trump rhetoric and courses and the like. But we found a math course, and believe it or not, it's math, at a popular university, focusing on a course on Hillary Clinton's quote-unquote strong character. You have to wonder about that. Hillary 101, what do you think, Tommy?
Well, first of all, when we're talking about Hillary Clinton's strong character, the math really doesn't add up there. But when we're talking about universities and professors that are teaching children things like this, teaching college students things like this, and we wonder why kids aren't able to get jobs after they graduate, maybe this is why, because teachers are spending more time with their liberal indoctrination than they are actually teaching things that are very important, like math. So it's a disservice to the students. I hope at some point students and parents and teachers will call out their fellow administrators or fellow professors and end this, because it's absolutely ridiculous at this point. I mean, my goodness, a class on Hillary Clinton's strong character disguised as a math course? Ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that guy, the professor's name is Mark Fabrini, and it's called Finite Mathematics, and it talks about Hillary Clinton. I don't get it.
What's the connection?
All right, Tommy, thank you very much. Have a great week out there in California.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic sure has changed, hasn't it? Thank you, Tommy. All right, Hurricane Florence is set to hit the Carolinas in just a couple of days, touted as a potential once-in-a-lifetime storm.
So how do you prepare for something like that? North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper and FEMA Administrator Brock Long join us with what millions of people need to hear in the next day.
Plus, Eric Trump here live in the 8 o'clock hour. Big show rolls on.